All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is a call to order of the Aspen City Council regular meeting for March 22nd, 2022. Could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councilor Doyle.
Here.
Councilor Howenstein.
Present.
Councilor Mesereau. Councilor Richards.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Here. I want to make, before we even get started, I want to make a note about some agenda amendments so that people that are watching this meeting right from the get-go know where some things were going to fall. Under action items, we have a couple items listed. Let's see, the Resolution 42, Aspen Parks Baseline Irrigation Controller Retrofit will be moved to the consent calendar. And the Resolution 43 Moratorium Policy Resolution will be moved to a public hearing. Item D under action items, the special event permit application for Rio Grande Park will be pulled from the agenda this evening. I think those are them. With that, no scheduled public appearances this evening. It'll bring us to citizen comments and petitions. If there's members of the public that wish to address council on items that are not scheduled for a public hearing and comment this evening, you're welcome to do so now. And we invite you to limit your comments to about 3 minutes so that everybody gets a fair and equal opportunity to be heard. I'm going to start with in-room. Are there members of the public that are in room that would like to address council on any items? And I'm going to go to WebEx, although I'm not going to be able to get on WebEx right now. So I'll open it up to members of the public that are on WebEx. If you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record. I'll make one more call for members of the public that are on WebEx this evening for council comment. Hearing none and understanding that sometimes we have technical difficulties getting to you, I will check back in once I have that screen up and available as well. But I'm going to need a new link sent to me, it looks like. as this one doesn't contain the address. That'll bring us down to special orders of the day. Council members and mayor's comments tonight. We'll start with council members. Anybody care for comments this evening?
I'll go in a minute.
All right. John needs a second. Ward?
Happy spring, it's here. Days are getting longer. Enjoy the last month of skiing and get your bicycle out and support Ukraine.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Ward. Rachel?
Yes, I have no real comments this evening other than to let council know and the public, should they have any reason to care particularly about it, but I will not be at any meetings next week, the 4th and 5th of April, and Skippy will be covering my APSHA for me, as he always is there anyhow, and a great member there. So that's all, and I'll be kind of out of touch, but hope to be back, and I will be here for our Monday work session as well. Thank you.
Are you gonna have fun?
With any luck.
We will send you luck.
Yeah, we're sending you luck.
Skippy, comments this evening?
Didn't have any. Do you think it's worth me saying anything about housing or?
Board reports are next if you have anything.
No, different conversation, but unless you think so, I'm good.
Yeah, no, whatever you feel appropriate. I don't think necessary.
Okay. No comments. Enjoy your spare moments.
John?
This from Democracy Now! Recent warm temperatures, near the Earth's north and south poles have shattered previous records, raising alarm among climate scientists. In Antarctica, some regions soared as much as 90 degrees Fahrenheit above normal over the weekend. Temperatures near the North Pole reached more than 50 degrees Fahrenheit above average last week, approaching the freezing mark in areas that were still shrouded in around-the-clock winter darkness. You don't see the North and South Poles both melting at the same time. Walt Meyer, ice scientist at the National Snow and Ice Data Center in Boulder, Colorado, told Associated Press News. Needless to say, it's pretty alarming. Thanks.
Spring on the polls.
Thanks, John. Comments this evening. I'll start off by giving you an idea of something that's more fun to attend than this meeting. Tonight at 7 o'clock in Snowmass, actually at the Collective, is an ACES program, and this one was interesting to me. Tonight the program starts at 7 o'clock, so actually you can enjoy the first part of this meeting and then still get over there. But this is, the program is starting a ranch from the ground up. And I thought that was interesting because, number one, ACES puts on great programming, but what an interesting topic for our area. And I'm sure that it's going to cover a lot of issues that are still relevant and prevalent for us today. So again, that's out at the Collective in Snowmass. My other comment this evening is I just wanted to refer to an article that was in the paper today, Tuesday, March 22nd. On the front page at the bottom of the Aspen Times, the headline is "Housing Crisis Forces Music Fest to Cut Philharmonic and Reduce Enrollment." The subtitle to that is "Short-Term Rentals Said to Bounce Students, Faculty, and Staff from Free Market for Summer Housing." You know, I'm saying this really, you know, with just a level of conversation. People ask, what are the impacts? What are we seeing? What are you guys worried about? What's happening? Well, these are the kind of direct impacts that we're trying to take a look at during this moratorium period. I said it all the time, I've said it again, but one more time, is that nobody's talking about stopping all short-term rentals. We're talking about just getting a handle on what it means and the impacts that it has for our community. I just found it interesting and amazing that they're talking about 80 to 100 students that normally come and are able to find that housing to come and enjoy Aspen and the great program it's unavailable to them. And they're seeing a direct link between short-term rentals and the loss of housing that they're experiencing. So just an example for everybody to keep in mind. I mentioned agenda amendments earlier. I don't need to restate those. Hopefully, everybody remembers a few of those. I'll remind you as we get to consent calendar. That'll bring us to the city manager's comments tonight. Sarah?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. I have a few updates for you tonight. Let me just pull up those notes. First, I'm going to embarrass one of our staff, but I'm going to ask her to come forward. Tessa, could you come forward?
Hey. Hello.
Hi, Tessa Schreiner is joining us as our new Climate Action Manager.
Oh, wow. The directional mics.
Very
clap right into it.
We felt really confident we didn't have to look hard or far to find excellent talent to help with this mission-critical portion of our work. And we're looking forward to having her in this role, and her first order of business is filling a vacancy on her team. So, welcome, Tessa. We're happy to have you in this role.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah,
Congrats.
Tessa, real quickly, just want to say, I mean, you've been here doing a great job. Every presentation and interaction that we've had with you from council's side has been just wonderful, thorough, informed, and helpful for us tremendously. The other thing I'd say is, I mean, you do have big shoes to fill.
But tiny feet.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, maybe not.
And, you know, our expectations always are high, but we're sure you're up to the task. You've done a great job while you've been with us so far, so congratulations to you.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, Council. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, I really didn't tell her ahead of time I was going to do that to her.
We figured it out because she's hanging out with Doherty.
A few other things for you. We were initially scheduled to review the Health and Human Services Community Nonprofit and Arts and Culture grants this evening. An item in our packet process that is an item we chose not to put tonight to make sure it was completely done. We did go ahead and email you, though, that information in case you're contacted by grantees, because we didn't want them having more information than you, in case that happens between now and April 12th. So on April 12th, the steering committee will be presenting to you, so your citizens will be presenting to you the work of their committees with that program. I also wanted to let you know that the resident survey is nearing completion. So postcards have gone out. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact last day. It's sometime, I think, next week. Does somebody here know? Can you look that up for me, maybe, Jamie? Thanks. And then with that, I just want to let you know we've had phenomenal response, even with the electronic version. We've had maybe a dozen requests for paper versions, but by far, I knew we were over 300 respondents a week ago. So fantastic news there. Some of you also have been contacted by some members of our federal legislative delegation regarding congressional directed spending requests for fiscal year 23. Do want to let you know we are working on that through our departments, sort of prioritizing what's the appropriate ask. My question back to you is, should that come to the council for prioritization, or should the staff move forward with what it thinks at that point based upon your previous discussions? That would be helpful if you think we need to bring that back to you on the 5th. Thank you.
When is the deadline for any of these to get to Hickenlooper's office?
April 18th. So we think we would need direction on likely the 5th in order to meet that submission deadline as we prepare a lot of
Sure. Yeah.
info fast.
Info fast. I won't be here, but if other council members want to see that, I certainly would support that. The only real priority that comes to mind for me right now is continuing to seek funds for our childcare center construction. But there's probably any number of other issues too.
Council members, do you care for an open meeting, a full council update, or do you want to talk to Sarah on your own about it? What's your feeling? I'll start the conversation. I sent over the invite that was from Senator Bennett's office, sent it over to Sarah, and just said, Sarah, do we have eyes on this? So I personally am comfortable with staff handling it. They're aware of our desires and our goals, so I don't need a full meeting myself.
I'd like to see just information-only update. I think that our legislative agenda and Tara Nelson has been doing a wonderful job, so I feel comfortable.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with staff following
Okay,
our.
great. We will continue to run that process. We are anticipating that this is a year for us to put a request in. And the childcare is absolutely on our radar, particularly perhaps what might be the incremental increase for housing.
Yeah.
For childcare employees, as a way for us to make every dollar go further in meeting that issue.
You know, I just, for the public as much as anything, while there's a great number of needs, the request is pretty specific that they want shovel-ready projects and things that aren't conceptual but are ready to hit the ground. So that may narrow it anyhow, and you have the best idea which of those projects are. Thank you.
Great. The last thing that I have for council is that at this point, I believe two of you are attending the Colorado Municipal League Conference in June. And the conference begins on Tuesday evening, which is the same evening as a regular council meeting. I'm concerned about quorum for that meeting, and particularly for our land use applicants. I would like to get some direction here between now and April 12th about whether we are going to maintain that date for a regular council meeting, or if the council wishes to move that meeting so we can instruct our applicants appropriately.
Do you know what time do CML meetings start on Wednesday? Is it early morning session on Wednesday?
10-ish. I mean, there's some pre-things, like there'll be morning, like, for example, I think that might be when the morning prayer breakfast is for those who want to partake and things like that. Yeah, I've usually driven over on a Wednesday morning.
Okay. My preference is to maintain our work session schedule. We have a lot that we're trying to get through, and pushing stuff off, it doesn't help. So I'm all for maintaining it and going over in the morning myself. I also talked to Shannon today, and hotels are hard to come by right now, so I'm definitely not looking at going over on that Tuesday evening myself. So I'd prefer to keep the work sessions in place.
And to be clear, this is a regular meeting because I know one of you is also out of town on the 28th. And so that's why I really am counting to make sure that there's at least 3 of you if we're holding, because otherwise to comply with the charter, we need to move up the regular meeting.
Yeah, it's in registration for that today. I plan on attending, but it's Breckenridge, so it's not too far to go. I can go over on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I have not yet registered. I'm planning on going, but I'll go. I will, I have not yet registered, but I'm planning on going, and I can go over on Wednesday morning as well.
Okay, so it sounds there's at least 3 of you that will definitely be here on that Tuesday evening for whatever's on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for me.
Thanks. That brings us down to board reports. Board reports for this evening.
We did have a core meeting, and it was a powder day. And both John Doyle and I were in attendance, so that says something to our commitment to core.
Yeah, right.
Difficult.
It's a core commitment for you.
Very difficult. And we had some celebrations on Coal Basin, 1.2 million of funding, and reviewed some of the committees that are getting established, programs, finance, marketing and development, and governance committees that are really taking shape and taking form. We really celebrated 3 people that have had a long time commitment to CORE, with Ashley Pearl, Cindy Hubin, and Mona Newton, who have dedicated a good portion of, particularly with Mona, a good portion of time of their life towards the goals that we all share about the environment, carbon, and energy. I'll pretty much leave it at that, other than it only went an hour longer than we thought it was going to go.
Not bad.
You want, go ahead and add anything that.
Well, no, I think you covered it. The only other thing I had written down was that the total coal basin methane capture cost was around 15 million, but $1.2 million is a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, and we did discuss that we have the executive director search has commenced for Core. Do we have a CCLC? I didn't take notes on that one. What did we discuss? We discussed 4th of July involvement with choosing CCLC with a Central Core Lodging Commission has what I think is a really good gold standard for a selection process for the Saturday market, and being able to borrow upon that for the 4th of July, choosing participants in the parade and also judging the parade. Right. We had somebody from ACRA was there. And, what was it that was, there was a lot of discussion about what, back in 2016, I think we had formula retail, and that chain stores, there was an active discussion about that and how the formula retail ordinance really had no effect. Nobody's really been affected by it, and there's a real interest in the CCLC to open that discussion again and try to put some more meat on the bones. And I think those are the two active discussions. Other than nobody brought muffins.
Thanks, Ward. Other board reports? John?
Skippy and I attended a Nordic Council meeting last week. Just briefly, let's see. There's a movement going forward about plowing the Castle Creek Road to better access hunting. Naturally, the Pine Creek Cookhouse and John Wilcox are a little up in arms, as are most skiers, because there's so many skiers that use that road at that time of year. Plus, it always helps to have a base on the road to start the season. Craig Ward says the snowmaking proposal is very feasible and it's going forward. The proposal should be ready for the public next month. Nordic Council received another $5,000 donation anonymously. They've been receiving these for approximately the last 5 years. With Steve Aitken retiring, the new golf course golf supervisor replacement was talked about that the replacement needs to understand the summer and winter uses. And I'm sure the hiring process will reflect that. And then there were talks with the Snowmass Recreation Center about running the Snowmass Nordic Center next year because it hasn't run for the last couple of years due to COVID and staffing issues. That's about it.
Only thing to add was a little update on trail system, which is the first trails have just started to fall off for the year. The Rio Grande will be going on for a while, but as the temperatures rise, we'll have a slowly move into bike season.
About it?
He covered it magnificently.
Okay.
He covered it magnificently.
Thank you.
We really haven't
They're swelling.
taken on any new issues at APCHA, but have been continuing the discussion about right-sizing and finding the appropriate incentives to see that happen as a kind of a natural course of things. And we're preparing a survey to go out to those who may potentially be in a position to want to right-size and fill an empty bedroom by moving to a different unit. And so that was really the meat of the Housing Board discussion last. I think they're going to be finalizing that next week at the housing meeting with Skippy in attendance and carrying the city's load there. The only other thing for me is I will be driving this evening to Club 20 in Grand Junction after the meeting because we have the executive committee meeting and then the regular board meeting and then the award ceremony that evening for the people who've been participating Club 20 is an organization of the western 20 counties of Colorado who originally banded together to make sure they got their fair share of transportation funding. The next 2 days, Club 20 is hosting a major water conference, water and watersheds fire conference. They, again, looking at the 20 counties on the western side of the west slope here, the vast majority of the land is public lands, but they're public lands that we are all heavily dependent on their appropriate management for our water and for the water in the Colorado River, which, you know, the reports are separately than the poles melting, that we're very, very much in danger of falling below the power generation level at Lake Powell sooner than they'd anticipated. They were thinking maybe this fall or next year, and now they're thinking maybe by this summer. And that will potentially send water right claims up the system all the way up to Aspen. And so I think it's really important that people keep in mind their water conservation, that we really only have a few days worth of surface water supply here for Pitkin County or for Aspen municipally, and we want to keep the trout healthy. So don't follow the advice given at the conference, at the preview of the problem on the Colorado River by the Q&A afterwards, who said, you don't have to worry about taking 20-minute showers if you live on the west slope because it's all return flows to Lake Powell anyhow. And it's like, wait a second, what town do you live in? We have water shortages right here, and we have water concerns. So anyhow, that's where I'll be at, for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Board reports. It was 2 weeks ago after our meeting that on that Wednesday I had a Wheeler board meeting, and that Thursday I had both RAFTA and the Board of Health meetings. Out of the Wheeler Opera House meeting, you're going to see later in our agenda for some Wheeler Opera House COVID protocols and some changes that were asked for, suggested by the board. The rest of the meeting was just talking about some housekeeping, what's going on with building maintenance and the like, but also about an ongoing visioning process where Lisa Peterson is asking the Wheeler Opera House Board for their continued input about what the Wheeler wants to be and how it can best serve its community. And that was what we wrapped our meeting with on that day. Actually, and Sarah, you joined in on that meeting that day, correct? That was the one?
Yes, I was there.
So just continued discussions about the Wheeler RET and the grants process that went on there and that is going on, our new process that we've undertaken, and just keeping the advisory board from the Wheeler in the loop about what council wants to be doing with funding that we're seeing coming into the Wheeler RET and how that's going to be handled, and keeping them in the loop for their input. The RAFTA board meeting, more housekeeping, no groundbreaking news. Still waiting for travel restrictions due to COVID to lighten up and lessen, but those were added for an additional month. We also had some budget questions coming to us as we continue to struggle with first and last mile, some facility upgrades, and other park and ride facilities, as well as housing projects that are being undertaken and planned for. Nothing huge to report out of RAFTA, just gearing up for summer. And the Board of Health meeting was definitely a return to normalcy. Instead of meeting every month now, we are going to go back to quarterly meetings at the Board of Health. Important COVID information that came out of that meeting was that it is diminished in our community, but nonetheless still around. If you are compromised in any way, if you are concerned about your own health and safety and the health and safety of others and not transmitting, you can still take the precautions that are comfortable to you. Obviously, everybody knows that the mask mandate has been dropped in our area, but there are new variants that are still emerging, and there's still concern that there may be resurgence of COVID viruses. But as of this time, the Board of Health does not see it necessary to be meeting on a monthly basis.
Can we jump in there for a half second?
Yep, go right ahead.
I really just want to add to that about COVID. Folks may have noticed I continue to wear my mask at these meetings. I do work in a supermarket, so I'm really exposed kind of consistently, and I don't want to be spreading it. But I had a good personal friend who is a medical professional and is fully vaccinated and boosted, but did contract COVID at the end of February, and she was pregnant, and she miscarried a week after receiving that at 5 months. And so I just want to put out there that COVID is still damaging people's lives. COVID is still a potential to be concerned with. So really think carefully and pay attention if you have a cold and see what it really is, because it's still going around. Thank you.
And to just finish those comments, to that end, testing is still available. Free testing is available. Free and timely testing is available. So if you are in that area of gray where you don't know or want to know or need to know more, please, there is still testing available. It's located, one of the testing locations is located at the Armory. And the last board report I have for you is to let you know that next Tuesday I have my ACRA board meeting next Tuesday morning. Sarah?
Would the council like an airport advisory board update today?
Yeah.
This past airport advisory board meeting was focused on a variety of topics, but the primary one was the airport layout plan that needs to be updated. And this is the physical components of the airport, so not any of the environmental impacts. But this is the first step in receiving assistance from the Federal Aviation Administration to realign runway. This is something that can run in tandem potentially with any work on the terminal itself. So just to let you know that work is advancing. It's going to take a couple years, I think, to get through just the airport layout changes. And the advisory committee's role is to provide feedback back to the consultant and staff, who will then incorporate that and then ultimately provide advice back to the BOCC on what layout to be submitted to the FAA for conditional approval. And how that works is the conditional approval is what will then trigger the environmental component as pieces are implemented. So it will always sort of be in a conditional approval format, particularly as we deal with noise and emission concerns from the aircraft and how those could impact air quality in that area of town overall. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay. Few other things with the airport is just to let you know that from May 2nd to May 15th, the airport is closed for pavement maintenance work, for its annual 2-week pavement maintenance work. We are still having a high number of commercial aviation flights for winter season coming in. So we have right now between 32 and 35 commercial aviation flights into Aspen a day. And this summer, it's going to go down some. Right now, the current scheduling is showing it closer to 20. Obviously, that could change based on demand, that the airlines could add more. But just wanted you to be aware we should be ready for another busy summer. 7 different direct flight markets into Aspen Airport this summer. If you have any other questions about that or the airport, let me know. Thanks.
Just a quick one. Could you keep us posted on any end-of-life dates on the CRJ 700 and what's the replacement coming along?
Sure. So we don't know how fast it is, but what I do know, and I don't know the timing of this, is that there will be testing of a different type of aircraft coming in and out of our airport that has a slightly wider wingspan. And during the pavement work this May, they'll actually be striping parking for this slightly wider wingspan. It's still less than 90 feet to comply, but the tips are tipped up on the wings. Yeah, the wing tips are up and it's a little tight, but they're going to test them as a potential replacement coming through some of the commercial carriers. And I'm sorry, I just don't remember the
Is it
model.
Brazilian?
I genuinely don't remember here, but I can look it up for you.
Thanks, Sarah. Any other questions on airport development? Thank you. Any furthers?
Nordic and APCHA covered well.
Okay. That'll bring us down to the consent calendar this evening. The consent calendar tonight is resolution number 37, 2022, Burlingame Childcare Center Design Contract. Resolution 44, 2022, approving Sister Cities relationships. Resolution 45, Series 2022, contract amendment for extended SD services, and sustainability implementation. That's the lumberyard design team. We have draft minutes of March 7th and 8th. Board and commission appointments, as well as the one that has been moved from action items. This is resolution number 42, the Aspen Parks Baseline Irrigation Controller retrofit. Are there any requests for pulling any items for discussion this evening?
I'd like to pull just briefly the childcare to get a little clarification.
Thank you. Resolution number 37 for discussion. I'll make a brief mention about resolution number 44 and what we're doing there. And I'll make a mention just of board and commission appointments. Let's start with resolution number 37. Ward, do you have questions for conversation here?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it here, but my question was, we had two columns of scopes, one with housing and one without, and different numbers there. Are those two columns, the numbers we're looking at are for both, or just for, are they separate?
Are you talking about the numbers in the memo or the exhibit?
The numbers where we're looking for approval of scope 1 through 5?
Yes.
And where do we make a departure decision about including housing in going forward?
Thank you, Ward. First of all, my name's Jen Phelan. I'm with the Asset Department, and also here tonight, but virtually, is Andy Korber, the architect principal for the proposal that is before you. She would have been here in person, but had already had something scheduled out of state and couldn't be here tonight. Basically, we have worked with the architect to develop basically two tracks. One with the potential for affordable housing in addition to the daycare on the site, and one where it would just solely be daycare. We looked at the site. We think there are definitely some challenges with the site, and so we asked the architect to break it down into basically two buckets. And we'll have to have a decision point. The decision point will basically be at conceptual schematic. So the very first part, we'll have to decide, are we moving forward with or without housing? If we don't move with housing, there's less design associated with the project. And you'll see that when you go, if you go into the fee schedule in a lot more detail. But basically, we tried to anticipate and ask for two budgets based on a larger and smaller scope.
So the step 1 total is just for childcare. Step 3 is childcare and housing, or is that just,
So
are those two separate items that are added together?
there are the table in the memo has two columns. One is, the first column is just with a childhood center and the price for each step. And the second one is with housing for each step.
Okay, so if the housing one was
It's
$1,060,000,
Yes.
and that includes the childcare as well?
Yeah, that, both of them include childcare. It's just the addition of housing.
Okay, great. And then the other question I had was, for housing and for use of this property, do we have to get approval from any HOAs at BG 1, 2, and 3?
It depends on the site plan. So right now, we are looking at, we have parcel C, which allows for the for the childcare. And then we are also looking at 2 lots that allow for housing. Depending on how it's set up, it might be a simple approval where housing is on this area that it's allowed and the childcare is on the parcel that it's allowed. If we start mixing things, it will be a little more complicated.
And one more thing. The slope challenged section, it's an inside joke with Colombo here. The slope challenged section, is that the parcel that was for single-family homes, or is that for?
It's the childcare.
Okay.
There's a difference of slope of, I think, approximately 30 feet within that site. So it definitely has some physical challenges.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay.
Other questions on this contract? I want to make a couple statements for myself here because I've aired some questions around some of our choices that we're making on childcare, and this is one of them. You know, I continue to weigh whether we're going to be building both at Burlingame and the lumberyard as we've kind of been conceptually thinking about it in the recent past. I don't know if that's going to be something that actually comes to fruition. We may get to a point where we don't do the second one for other reasons, other capacity expansions that are going on other places. And if I had a choice between locations, I would support the lumberyard location over the Burlingame location for proximity and accessibility. So while I have some concerns about it, I support this. This is a top 3 goal for this council, and the decisions that we've been making going forward in this have led us to this place where we feel that this is the right course of action. So I'm going to support it this evening. I just wanted everybody to know that I still do have outstanding questions, and I still think that we need more information as we're going forward. Things are changing very quickly in this space in our valley, and so I still have those questions for myself, but I'm going to support this evening with those reservations in mind. I just wanted to share that with you guys so that in future conversations, it's no surprises that this is how I feel at this time. John?
I just wanted to quickly say how much I appreciated the people who are working on this project. They seem very well versed in designing and implementing just these types of spaces. Thanks.
I wanted quickly to bring up resolution number 44. This is a resolution approving all of our sister cities' relationships. The reason for this tonight is just to reaffirm those and put them into the same format. Some of these relationships and the resolutions that were passed or the agreements that were made were not all done necessarily in the same fashion. So this is really a way for us to just put these into the same resolution and make sure that these relationships are going forward with the same understanding amongst all of them. The last item I wanted to talk about was boards and commission appointments this evening. We are always so thankful to those participants in our community that take part in our boards and commissions. We still have openings, so I'm putting a call out to our community to go to the City of Aspen website, look for the application to apply for some of the openings that are still out there. I also wanted to thank those people that are currently applying, currently getting appointed, but also those that there was not a spot available for them in the board or commission that they applied for. We continue to encourage you to apply again. Truly, some of the applicants that we are appointing in this, this is their perhaps 3rd or 4th go-around for application. We appreciate them sticking with it. And we encourage anybody else that did not get an appointment they were seeking to maintain their involvement, perhaps look at another board to apply for as well. But we thank all those people that are volunteers on our boards and commissions. With that, no more questions on consent calendar. We could take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Rachel?
I'm just going to thank the Parks Department for their work to find ways to reduce their water consumption and move forward with this irrigation control item. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Could we have a roll call vote? And I just wanted to check, Jim, is it sufficient that the agenda amendments that I made earlier carry Resolution 42 in with the consent calendar? Okay, thank you.
Tried.
Just so it's clear, the motion to approve the consent agenda will include Resolution 37, 44, 45, and 42, as well as the draft minutes and the board and commission appointments.
Lovely.
Thank you. And a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
And that's a yes. Thank you, staff members, for being here. We tried to delay you as long as we could, keeping you with us.
Hour and 10 minutes to aces, my God.
Bye. That will bring us down to first reading of ordinance this evening. The first one in front of us is ordinance number 2. This is for Aspen Mini Storage Annexation.
Would you accept the motion to read on first ordinance number 2?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have
I make a motion to approve to have first reading of ordinance number 2.
I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance number 2, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau.
Yes.
Counselor Richards.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2, series of 2022, an ordinance of the City Council of City of Aspen, Colorado, approving the annexation of certain territory to the City of Aspen, Colorado, commonly known as the Aspen Mini Storage Property, 105 Woodward Lane, Aspen, Colorado, 81611, and legally described as Lot 3, Communications Subdivision, according to the plat thereof, recorded October 3rd, 1988, in Plat Book 21 at page 34.
Thank you. Yep, Ben, go right ahead.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you. For the record, Ben Anderson, planner with Community Development. Behind me is Chris Everson and 2 members of his team, Bob Schultz and Jason James. I'm going to talk a little bit about ordinance 2 and 3 together this evening. They're a package deal. We don't have a presentation for you this evening, but I'm anticipating a full presentation at second reading during the public hearing on April 12th. So tonight's presentations and discussions rather truncated, but just to kind of explain what how this action fits into the process that we've had a couple conversations with you previously. The first 2 conversations were resolutions to kind of show compliance with Colorado statutes regarding annexation, and now we're moving to Aspen's ordinance process. And this process is identically replicating the process that was done 10 years or so ago to bring the Lumberyard BMC West property into the city and to establish the initial zoning. It's a nearly identical process. The documents that we've submitted to you are nearly identical to what was carried out 10 years ago. There are 2 ordinances. The first one would approve the annexation. The second one, Ordinance 3, and we just had first reading of Ordinance 2. Ordinance 3 would establish the initial zoning to SCI, which is the closest zone that we have within Aspen's kind of zone district system to the existing use, and then establish a planned development overlay to memorialize the existing uses. It doesn't grant any additional development rights beyond what is there currently, which is a mini storage and a caretaker's housing unit for the manager of the property. I will just say that, I think that we don't do very many annexations. We haven't done very many recently. This is relatively small in the world of of annexations. Our, Colorado state law and also kind of our annexation plan really speaks to criteria, et cetera, for much larger pieces of property that may be greenfield. And this as a developed property, kind of with infrastructure service and utility service and kind of surrounded by other development, a lot of the review criteria simply don't apply to this action that you're considering this evening. So with that, I'd ask if, given opportunity to Chris and his team, if they have any comments this evening, but we have a kind of a more robust presentation for you at second reading in a couple weeks. But happy to answer any questions for you this evening on either the ordinances, and so that we're prepared for your questions or for the presentation on April the 12th. I did want to make note just of one minor correction. I'm rethinking the strategy of following exactly the path that we took in 2011 with the lumberyard and doing two ordinances. I had two ordinances, and there's two maps, a separate map that go with each of the ordinances. And it was brought to my attention this morning that one of the maps, I kind of repeated the two maps. One is a site plan that talks about the zoning and plan development overlay, and the other is the annexation map that gives a kind of a definition to that. We'll correct that. They were duplicated in the two ordinances. Both of those maps were included in your packet, but one was not attached to Ordinance 2, or the correct one was not attached to Ordinance 2, so we'll correct that for second reading. But happy to take any comments or questions this evening.
Council, this is first reading, so it's an opportunity to have any questions for answering on second reading. Anybody? Yep, Ward, start with you.
I don't really have any questions, but just for public and for clarification, that this is needed as we go forward with the lumberyard project. That so the lumberyard, all of the parcel, the 10.5 acres will be included in the city. So this is just the only reason we're doing this, I'd say, is for the lumberyard.
Any other questions or comments this evening?
Ward said what I was going to say. This is part of the path towards the lumberyard, isn't it? Yes. So, very good.
Correct.
We have ordinance 2 has been read. We can take these individually, so a motion to approve on first reading for ordinance number 2.
Mr. Mayor, may I
Yes.
make sure I clarify the ordinance, because Mr. Anderson talked about the map issue. Is the ordinance in the packet have the map that's that you're recommending? Ordinance 2 does?
It's Exhibit C. It's associated with the memo.
So that is attached to the ordinance as it exists now?
In the packet, associated with the memo, is the annexation map. Ordinance 2, the exhibit is correctly labeled, but the map that is there is the site plan that's more so related to the zoning action. And so across the two ordinances, they were duplicated. But the Exhibit C associated with the memo is the annexation plat.
And that's the one that should be attached to
Associated to Ordinance 2.
So I would recommend that the motion include that correction so that the proper map is attached to the ordinance 2.
Okay.
The friendly amendment would be to amend the motion to state that Exhibit C shall become an exhibit of ordinance number 2.
Yeah, and there hadn't been a motion yet, so.
That's why I was getting lost there too. Are you looking at me? It's like, did I make a motion?
Keep us going here, Sarah.
So Jim is asking that, for clarification, that ordinance 2, the motion includes Exhibit C as the referenced map for ordinance 2.
Correct.
And is that Exhibit C on Ordinance 3 now?
No.
Oh, okay, it's just that just
And
three
sorry for
different maps.
sorry for the confusion. Associated with the memo, which has a whole series of exhibits associated with them, one of them, Exhibit C, is the correct map that should be associated with Ordinance 2.
That's page 233 in our packet.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Somebody else want to make that?
Sorry to confuse that, but
I'm really good at seconding.
I'm allowed.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2, series 2022, Aspen Mini Storage Annexation, including Exhibit C as the referenced map for ordinance number 2.
Smooth. I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Tie
You can have it.
to the runner.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for ordinance number 2 as including Exhibit C?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Which will bring us down to ordinance number 3. Again, I need a motion for just to read the ordinance.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance number 3?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yep.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Ordinance number 3, series of 2022, an ordinance of the City of Aspen City Council establishing the initial zoning to an annexed property to the Service Commercial Industrial Zone District and approving a final plan development plan for the property commonly known as the Aspen Mini Storage Property, 105 Woodward Lane, Aspen, Colorado, 81611, and legally described as Lot 3 Communications Subdivision, according to the plat thereof recorded October 3rd, 1988, in Plat Book 21 at page 34.
Very good.
Now I would take, we've already just had our discussion about ordinance number 3. I still need a motion to approve ordinance number 3 on first reading.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 3 on first reading.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for ordinance number 3?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Affirmative.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
And yes. Thank you, guys.
I'll be back in a second.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is still in our first reading of ordinances. Tonight's first reading is ordinance number 5, series 2022, and this is the Building IQ program.
Woo-hoo.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what's your title, please?
Well.
While we're just stalling to have Rachel back for any questions and such, I would take a motion to read.
I'll make a motion to read ordinance 5, series of 2022, Building IQ.
Seconded.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for reading of ordinance number 5. Is there any other further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance number 5?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Ordinance number 5, series of 2022, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aspen, Colorado, amending Title 8 of the Aspen Municipal Code to add a new chapter entitled 8.60.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Should I get started or should we wait for?
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started. She'll be back in just one moment.
Awesome. Well, good evening, Council. As you know, my name is Tessa Schreiner. I'm the new Climate Action Manager. And just in response to your very kind comments and Sarah's kind comments earlier, I just want to say how excited I am to serve you and the community in this new role and to help continue to reach our carbon goals for our community. So we are here today to talk about Building IQ and ordinance number 5. On February 22nd, exactly 1 month ago, we brought policy resolution number 021 to council for direction on Building IQ. And that policy resolution was approved, and which directed council to come back with a first and second reading of Building IQ. So I'm excited to be here tonight for the first reading of Building IQ. This ordinance recommends amendments to the Buildings and Building Regulation Code which would include Building IQ in its 2 phases, the energy and water benchmarking phase, which is phase 1, and then the second phase of the building performance standard. We call these the data tracking and the carbon reduction phases. And I'm sorry, I was remiss earlier not to introduce my co-presenter, John Doherty from CORE, who you all know. All right, today's high-level presentation will cover first the why of Building IQ, the process for how we got here, the impact that Building IQ would have should council pass it, the resources that we have available to make Building IQ successful, and we'll end with questions and discussion from council to hear any feedback for second reading. We'll start with the why of Building IQ. So, in 2021, Council set 3 goals, one of which was a carbon goal to provide leadership and take meaningful action to reduce the community's greenhouse gas emissions. That also directed specific action in the built environment. In addition, in January of this year, Council set new science-based targets for carbon reduction or emissions reduction from our community. That is a 63% reduction by 2030 and carbon zero by 2050. These science-based targets require us to take a really hard look at where our emissions are coming from, which we can see here from our most recent inventory, our 2020 emissions, which is that 57% of our community's emissions come from the built environment, both residential and commercial buildings. And so Building IQ obviously addresses this very directly. It's the most high-impact action item that we can take to address the emissions coming from our building sector. Finally, Building IQ is in alignment with the recommendations of our Climate Action Plan. So believe it or not, we began Building IQ in 2018. We've been working on it since then. One of the first things that we did to start was begin with stakeholder engagement. We brought together a design team and various subcommittees that are comprised of experts, staff from across various city departments, and representatives from each of the 3 utilities that serve our community. This design team and the subcommittees really helped design and craft the Building IQ policy and program that is before you today. This program is an incredibly collaborative effort and really could not have been done without these teams and committees. In addition to that, the staff brought together a really robust outreach and stakeholder engagement process for our program participants beginning in 2019. And I'm happy to say that we were able to integrate all of this feedback from the program participants into the policy and guidance program that you see in front of you today. Our interaction with council on Building IQ, we've had 3 work sessions, 2 in 2019, 1 in 2021, and most recently brought a policy resolution for you all on Building IQ, which you approved in February. And then finally, I think it's worth mentioning that the entire process to design this Building IQ program for the city of Aspen has really deeply embedded best practices from across the country, including takeaways and best practices from the 43 communities that have implemented benchmarking ordinances in the country and the 8 communities that have implemented building performance standards. In addition, this ordinance and program has been reviewed and given the thumbs up by the EPA, the Department of Energy, Institute for Market Transformation, Colorado's Energy Office, and other national experts. I'd like to take council on a high-level journey of what the next 10 years could look like should you pass Building IQ. Year 1 of the enactment date, year 1 after the enactment date, property owners in the city of Aspen will have 2 years of quality benchmarking data. We will take that data and turn it into information to help inform program improvements and the building performance standards, and the actual standards that we will design alongside community stakeholders to set those standards and to put them in the BPS guidelines. By year 2, council will have reviewed and approved the BPS guidelines and the actual building performance standard specifics, and this will come with enhanced community or property owner support. In addition, we expect to see a 2 to 3% savings from the properties that will be benchmarking at that time. That's the national average. Just the active benchmarking sees about a 2 to 3% average savings, really just by property owners taking a look at their bills and comparing them year over year. By year 5, all of the properties under the Building IQ ordinance will be benchmarking at that time. And we expect to see, again, that 2 to 3% savings across the entire portfolio of buildings that are under the Building IQ. In addition, with the support of technical experts with CORE, we'll start to see further efficiencies from the properties that are actually making those improvements to reach their building performance standards. And this will be a really key time in working towards our goals for the 2030 carbon reduction goals. By year 10, we will have, properties will see a significant efficiency in the work that they've done in reaching those building performance standards, and the city will see a drop in the contribution of buildings and percentage of buildings emissions in our full pie of our greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, we will see a lot of progress towards our 2030 goal, if not, as part of the contribution of the entire work that we have to do in order to reach that goal. In summary, the first few years of Building IQ are fundamental in gathering crucial benchmarking data to really help us inform the next steps for the building performance standards. Once those standards are set, we're really going to start to see deeper efficiencies and a lot more progress towards our 2030 goal.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Just one clarifying question on that sort of last timeline.
Sure.
I'm sure that we're not going to, get everyone sort of benchmark at year 5, and then at year 10, 5 years later, all the benefits arrive. I'm sure that they will arrive over time. And so I'm just kind of wondering, between that year 2 and 10, which is a long time span, how do we expect these things to show up? Is it a hockey stick? Is it a straight line? Is it a humpback? What are we looking at in terms of the actual deliverable in terms of carbon reduction?
That's such a good question. Many communities have done what you're saying is a variety of that, drawing a line from here's our goal to here's where we are, and let's make a line to reach that incremental progress. Other communities have understood that progress starts slow and then amplifies and, builds on the efficiencies of what we've achieved yesterday. Again, this will be really determined by this building performance standards stakeholder group, along with our staff that develop these standards, and really what the approach the community wants to take and what property owners feel is best for them.
Got it. So TBD, and at least on the margins, if not completely, we have some control over their outcome based on the policies we set.
Precisely.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So, Building IQ is a really big and impactful program, which requires resources to deliver it effectively and successfully. The good news is that we have solutions for these resources. And so I will start with our technical support, and I'll pass it along to John to provide a high-level overview of what CORE is prepared to provide to support Building IQ.
All right. You hear me all right? So really, I just want to hit on sort of, this is a partnership that, one, has been phenomenal to build and learn about in working with Tessa and her team, and really builds on the skill set and experience that CORE has delivered with the support of the city and the county for many, many years, which is how do we work with buildings to understand the magnitude of their carbon impact on our community, and then help them build a pathway or a course to correct that or improve that, reducing carbon emissions. And so our real function in this is to bring to bear the support and the resources that CORE has built in partnership with the city and county for many years, with some specific attention on Building IQ itself. So we will continue to do the sort of the 3 levers that make CORE's process for buildings work, which is assessments, and then the incentives, rebates, and grants programs that allow us to help those building owners, those property owners, make the improvements that they need to make. The distinction with Building IQ has really been around the coordinated effort with the city of Aspen around how are we going to approach these larger scale buildings and what looks different in that relationship in terms of process. So helping us begin to really understand the pace at which we're going to see change and what the investment will need to be in that process. So Aside from those traditional roles that CORE plays, we are also in the process of standing up a website that will become a hub where, again, in partnership with the city, we are determining what can be handled sort of online through a web-based portal that can inform building owners and help them begin a process, whether that is in partnership with CORE and the support of CORE or through a do-it-yourself process, because we do have building owners that are ready to go to work on this. The second piece is dedicated staff that are going to support that web-based hub to provide actual technical assistance. So a person in office as part of CORE's staff team that is already in our model, so that when people call the resource center, they can be provided direct assistance, guidance on how to use the tools. I think probably the biggest shift with this is really understanding the integration of some new technology and tools for tracking this system, and that's the space that we're spending the majority of our time right now. And that will be the data that will inform how the process moves forward from here. So we're eager and excited to be a part of this. I have certainly learned a great deal in my short time with CORE, and just couldn't be more happy to have Tessa in her new role, but also her leadership in guiding this and educating me through this process and helping us build what I think is going to be a phenomenal program.
Thank you, John. So in addition to that, with the support that CORE is providing in this technical assistance and really hand-holding for property owners to ensure that this is a smooth process, at this time we do not have additional staffing needs to deliver Building IQ on the city staffing side. In addition to that, again, with the support of CORE and just how we have structured the program, at this time we do not have any additional financial resource needs for the delivery of Building IQ and in its current state. We are looking to out years, so as the building performance standard phase comes into play, we need to consider the funding necessities to really help property owners in this process. Those funding sources will come from a variety of places, including local dollars, state and federal dollars, and from property owners themselves. Speaking of state dollars, I would like to inform the council that City of Aspen was awarded a grant for $150,000 from the Colorado Energy Office to help streamline our benchmarking process and share data from our Aspen utilities to property owners in a way that reduces staff time, enhances quality of data, and just makes the process a lot better for the property owner. So we'll be coming back to council for formal approval of those funds and acceptance of those funds shortly, but just wanted to let you know that that was happening.
Thank you.
So in conclusion, staff recommends that council approve ordinance number 5 on first reading, which is Building IQ. And I would love to hear any questions and discussion from council, especially anything that you'd like us to consider for a second reading.
A couple of years ago, when we started this Building IQ with some city properties, there were some discussions about there's a website that you can go that you can fill in the information. It's pretty easy to do. Is there, at this point, any integration for a person or an entity to auto-upload their energy usage to that site so it can be monitored? I don't think that existed a couple of years ago.
Such a great question, and actually something that we're looking at to spend our Colorado Energy Office grant funds on is that exact process.
Okay, good.
To auto-upload it, to make it really easy for the property owner.
Yeah, this is all really data-driven, and I just remind the public that the irony of us funding CORE, first of all, number one, is it's energy usage and carbon is it's not just a Aspen issue, it's a regional and it's a global issue. And by our support for CORE, we are supporting beyond just Aspen. Now the irony comes in is that this becomes more successful, that funds, that energy usage is decreased and that the funds that go into the REMP fund are decreased. So we are, in essence, we're killing our funding for CORE. And that's why year and a half, 2 years ago, we tasked CORE with finding other funding mechanisms so that they were not so dependent on the REMP funds from the county and from the city. So hopefully, if we're really successful, we won't have any rent money going to core.
And I would just comment with that, because I think it's an important update for all of you to know that CORE did make advancements in the last week. So we have brought on development staff, both in grant writing and in this in the area of a comprehensive development plan, to begin to look at our commitment for ongoing funding. And if you recall from the resolution that we brought forward last time, really a large portion of the dollars going into the staff time spent on building IQ and moving these initiatives forward are part of that resolution for this year because of the funding that's available through REMP. So we're trying to tackle both at the same time, but wanted to call attention to that because we believe that success with the City of Aspen around the impact that this can have on our larger buildings is something CORE will be then able to help replicate beyond the limits of the City of Aspen, which only further generate funding opportunities for us to help make this happen throughout the valley. So we did have a very successful meeting, in fact, just earlier today with Pitkin County, where around the Coal Basin Initiative, they have authorized an additional $200,000 outside of REMP dollars to move forward the NEPA process to move that along. So there is good momentum, and we think that through partnerships like this and the evidence that that data will create, that's what's going to help us really move the needle on carbon.
I was just, went back to my core meetings and noting that the NEPA 200K from the BOC was approved today. Thank you.
Rachel?
I had something to say, but, you know, I'm glad the county has put the $200,000 towards that project, but Aspen is carrying more of CORE's weight this year because the county couldn't afford their half. And so that starts to sound a little funky to me that the city was asked to pick up more CORE funding because they couldn't, but yet they have $200,000 for a specific project. And, you know, we didn't pull $200,000 out of the money we put into CORE and say, well, this is for a specific project. So it's a little awkward to me. You know, I just have to point that out since we're paying more of CORE's price this year. You know, it seems awkward that they found the money for something else, but not when we were doing budget season this fall. My bigger question was more about future, and so we don't have to get into it right now, but the property assessed clean energy ballot measure that was passed in Pitkin County, I was trying to recall whether that was for residential homes only or whether it was something that would be available to commercial buildings.
I believe commercial.
Yeah, property, and I know there is a commercial pace that went forward separate, but we did have a ballot measure, property assessed clean energy is when somebody makes their energy improvements that are certified and approved and everything, they can pay them off over time through their property taxes. And the county would, and the voters gave them approval to issue a bond to be able to finance these things. So people pay them back slowly over their property taxes. And property taxes is one of the most successful collection measures ever. So it's not like getting a second trust on your house where people may go back on it. Right as soon as that happened, we saw Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac, who buy the secondary market on mortgages, say we don't want any mortgages that have residential property assessed clean energy on them. And it was because we were in the middle of the housing crisis and the housing meltdown that melted the whole economy down. And so it was never really implemented, but the bond is still, you know, potentially available and to help create a funding source for this program going forward. And so I think we should kind of look backwards. We worked vigorously with someone from the ski company on passing that, Auden Schindler back in the time, and a great many other community members, people from ACES and myself were part of that campaign committee. So I'd love to see if it's still viable or whether we have to pass it again to be able to have the financing tool that can make these sort of energy improvements literally pay for themselves, even for the property owner, because they're paying it off over time, and the energy savings are coming in over time as well. So that was my only comment to this, and thank you for your hard work.
Great. Thanks, Rachel.
That's great. John?
Yeah, I just want to say how excited I am about this, getting to the second reading. Thanks, Tessa, thanks, John, and thanks, Ashley Pearl, for getting this started. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's really coming down.
Skippy, any additionals?
No, thank you guys for your work.
Thanks.
I don't have anything necessary for second reading or what have you. This is a very interesting program. It's been very difficult to move individual building owners on this type of initiative. Cost. It comes down to cost. Then on top of it, in our community, we've seen where saving money is not the biggest incentive for folks. So I think that we have some struggles in front of us, but I think you guys are putting together a great package and a great plan of how to move this forward. I do see that we're probably going to still have some hiccups along the way when we start really trying to implement some of what we're learning. But I'm so hopeful for the benchmarking process itself as that first step that's going to really inform and educate and bring people along in what are the eventual benefits going to be. And truly eventual benefits are not just environmental, but also economic. We are really, truly trying to help people save money by saving energy. And so I think that we're on a great path here. I really appreciate the hard work that's gone into this for years. The examples that you're using and drawing on from around the country are going to be invaluable as we move forward successfully. So I don't have anything for second reading. I just wanted to make a note that we have some challenges here in this space, but I think that you're tackling it in the best way possible. So I really thank you for the work that you're doing right now.
Well, thank you so much. And just a quick note on that too, because you make really good points. We had our first meeting today with the Council on Environmental Quality's BPS Coalition, which the City of Aspen joined this year. We are alongside 33 other communities in the states that are working on a BPS development and policy. We're ahead of some, and others are ahead of us. But we have all the same challenges, and we're all working really hard together to find solutions, develop resources, and overcome these hiccups, like you're saying. So I feel really well equipped to work with that team and really come back with a BPS guidelines that are solid.
Thank you. We've had a motion for reading. Now we need a motion for approval on first reading of ordinance number 5.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 5, series of 2022, Building IQ.
Are you handing out assignments?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for first reading of ordinance number 5, series 2022, Building IQ?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Hauenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Indeed.
Counselor Richards, Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We will see you again with that.
Yes.
That
April
brings us
12th.
down, no public hearings. No, there is one public hearing this evening. The public hearing tonight is for resolution number 43, series 2022. This is moratorium policy resolution.
Action item.
Doing too much.
Hey, Tessa, can you
Thank
stop
you
sharing your
guys,
screen?
all of you, the whole team.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for being here.
Thanks, CJ.
Waiting for Tessa slides to come down. You're okay, there we go.
Make sure you say "we" when you're on the slide.
Mr. Mayor and Council, for the record, Ben Anderson, Planner with Community Development. Philip Sapino, Community Development Director, is on the line as well. He's a little under the weather this evening, but I'm sure he'll jump in if he has some things to add. If I may, Mr. Mayor, share some slides with you.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Mayor, that we're taking these out of order then. Resolution 41.
Which we moved up.
Is under action items.
We moved, this to the public hearings,
My apologies.
and I can,
Still haven't. Can't hear that either. A great microphone saga.
So just to bring clarity, we're talking about resolution number 43, series of 2022 this evening. Before we get into the heart of the resolution, I just want to talk a little bit about this step in the process and where we sit in our timeline related to the moratorium response. In orange, in the middle of the calendar, is the 3/22 date, which we've had kind of scheduled for this policy resolution hearing. This is more of a formal part of the process. You have engaged in policy resolutions before on other code amendments. It's a step that's required in the land use code when we pursue amendments of any type to the land use code. In this case, and we'll talk about what's included, but you've already had the difficult conversations to this point in some important work sessions related to short-term rentals and related to residential development. And so this policy resolution, I think it's important to see the connections to the Aspen Area Community Plan and some of the other goals that council has established for the community. But I do think that ultimately this is a fairly formal part of the process that we've got many more steps to engage in, but really just has the effect of opening up the land use code for the things that you're seeking to achieve during the moratorium. Again, and we keep kind of showing this slide, just talking about some of the constraints that we're facing. We've got 7 weeks until ordinance adoption. We've done an awful lot of work to this point, but we've got a lot of work in that time frame. I think our conversations that we've had with the community so far continue to reinforce the problem that reinforce the situation that if these problems were easily solved, Aspen would have solved them a long time ago. And I think we are making some progress on this third topic, but I do think that we're still the conversations and the way that we're engaging with the community, we're still dealing with, I think, response to the moratorium and just the issues that are associated with these difficult topics. Positively, I do think that our public engagement and the way that we're engaging with folks kind of one-on-one has been made much easier with the improvements that we've had in the community in terms of our COVID infection rates, but we're still being careful and being thoughtful about how we interact with folks. But I think when we started this process, we thought it was going to be primary to our efforts and something that was really going to drive the process, and it's been less so, but still something we're thinking about. The policy resolution approval has the effect of authorizing code amendments, gives focus to key solutions and direct relationships to things like the Aspen Area Community Plan, and hopefully gives clarity for staff and public as we move forward with the process. The policy resolution, again, this is something specific to the land use code. Anytime we pursue an amendment, we need to establish the objective that we're seeking to accomplish. It doesn't necessarily need to specify code sections or proposed text. In this case, we have talked about the chapters that we're going to be talking about. And we're pretty far down along the path in response to the moratorium, but if you are having any second thoughts, tonight would be a good moment to say so. But certainly it is within your discretion to either amend or not approve the resolution in front of you this evening. The amendment topic areas, these are not new topics for you. We've had several work sessions on these items. Philip talked with you about short-term rentals on March the 1st. We had several conversations about the other three topics on March the 14th in a work session. And really, there's not anything in this policy resolution that deviates from those conversations that we've had to this point. This is a comprehensive list of the areas of the land use code that we're likely going to be touching in some way or the other as we put together proposed amendments. I'm happy to talk about any of those specifically if you have questions. There are review criteria at a couple different stages of the amendment process for this policy resolution initiating code amendments. There exists a community interest to pursue the amendment. I think in our conversations, that's been clearly established. We've certainly focused in our conversations with you, and you've certainly focused in your comments about furthering the objectives and the goals established by the AACP and other things that council kind of has given emphasis to. And we think that the work that we're going to be proposing is certainly compatible with the community character of the city and is in harmony with its purpose and the interests of this title of the Land Use Code and the Municipal Code. So from staff's perspective, those review criteria have been met by this policy resolution and the amendment process that the community is engaged in at this moment. Next steps, we continue in our engagement efforts. Philip and I and other members of our staff have been holding one-on-one meetings in the last couple weeks following kind of our robust engagement week from a couple weeks ago, having really great conversations. And I think that I think the community is coming to understand some of the pathways that we're taking in response to some of the issues that council's addressed. There's been some really great collaborative discussions that I think we're gonna come up with some things that there's a broad consensus on. So that's been a positive step in the last couple weeks that we've kind of felt. Our staff and consultants are engaged in continued analysis. We're starting to put some pen to paper in terms of ideas around potential code amendments. We've got several more scheduled meetings and work sessions with you folks. I'll be back with you on 3/28 to talk about our engagement efforts to this point and some discussions about demolition. And then I do think, and I think we want to continue to reinforce this for council and the community. Because of the timeline, because of the sort of intensity of process that we're engaged in at this time, we've really focused on the things that need to happen under the moratorium. But I think there's a lot of energy and a lot of momentum around these topics, and we are already starting to strategize and put together a plan for the things that are going to be coming forward to council in the 6 months following the expiration of the moratorium. And so just know that is central to our thinking right now, that the policy resolution gives direction to these specific amendments that might be coming between now and June. But we're certainly starting to strategize about this more robust set of topics that we've talked with council about in the last several months. So in relationship to the policy resolution, we're certainly recommending approval of Resolution 43 this evening. This would, again, be this formal step in the amendment process. The next step that you would see in a formal way is first and second reading of proposed amendments.
Just a technical question, because we moved this in the agenda. We approve this tonight. This doesn't come back for a second reading?
It's back for
Okay.
first.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I just would thank you, Ben, for all the hard work and that of everyone in your department. We know you've been working hard and fast, yet thoroughly and carefully. So we greatly appreciate this. I have read through the policy memorandum for the policy resolution and feel it matches the work that we're attempting to do. And so I am happy to support this, and I would make a motion to approve resolution number 43, series of 20.
It's a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we had to move it up to public
Okay,
hearing.
it is a public hearing, so
before
I
I
will
take that
withdraw that.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? It is a public hearing, so we will open it for public comment. Seeing none at council table, why don't we go ahead and take care of that? This is a public hearing on resolution number 43. This is a moratorium policy resolution. Are there members of the public for any comments this evening? Seeing none in room, I'm looking on WebEx as well. If there are members of the public that wish to comment on resolution number 43, the moratorium policy resolution, please unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record. I do not see any or listed on my list of participants here, so I'll go ahead and bring it back to council table.
there we go again. I would make a motion to approve policy resolution number 043, series of 2022.
I will second that motion.
Sounded kind of happy about it.
I am happy about it.
Very nice. I like the lilt in your voice there. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do want to comment on this. I know that we have put a lot of work on the table of Ben and Philip and a lot of people in the city staff. I think we all feel how important this is, that we're trying to save some of the fabric of Aspen, and in doing so, Ben and a bunch of other people have been working really hard. And I'm very appreciative of it, and I look forward to the specifics that we will be looking at in the next 7 weeks. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ward.
Thanks, Ben.
If you'd like.
I would love to. Yeah, very, very supportive of this, and just for, kind of, I guess, public at home to understand where this fits in. I know it's in the slides, but some people just aren't going to read that. This has been a journey. There's a lot of discussion about how do we approach these incredibly impactful challenges that are not new, but have really reached a fever pitch. That was a whole process in and of itself. The last several weeks we've heard, are you guys doing anything? And what you're seeing here is the scaffolding, right? This is a lot of work in the background. When you look at the totality of these bullet points, during normal process, I mean, this is years of work that are condensed down into a number of weeks, really. And so now I think for the public, you have a better sense of what's going to be worked through. We know it's going to be worked on, and how efficacious these things are depend on how these get filled out, right? So the scaffolding with the bamboo is there for the building, but how thick will the walls be? Is it going to be a bathroom on the inside, or is it going to be a bedroom? Those will be the choices that we make over the next 7 weeks, and there's going to be great opportunity for participation in that. We look forward to including you, but I'm just super grateful to staff for a ton of work here that will have a tremendous impact for the better, we believe, on our community.
Thanks, Gibby. And thank you for referencing bamboo scaffolding.
It's the most environmentally friendly, used all over Asia, biodegradable, repurposable. I mean, it's a great recycling program. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll consider that as one of the.
It's not so environmentally friendly when you ship it halfway across.
Yes, because it's an invasive species that's like highly kept out of the local ecosystem. Yeah, I understand.
Other comments? John?
Just really happy that this work is continuing. Thanks to ComDev for all your hard work. Thanks, Philip. Thanks, Ben.
Just one more comment, kind of dovetailing on what Skippy was saying, that, people were complaining that we haven't done anything. If we had done something without public outreach or listening to what the citizens want, then we would just be doing it in a vacuum. So it takes a while to find out what the people want, how they react to it, what direction we're going to go, what they don't want to see, what perhaps they do want to see. So going forward, it's with full knowledge from those people that have participated in the pop-ups and the outreach. And so as we proceed, we've tried really hard, I think, to get input from the citizens. And that as we go, because we haven't done anything yet, it's because we're getting ready to do something.
$250,000 hard.
It might be a good time to remind the general public that there is still time to add your input.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So please reach out. There are ads in the newspaper. It's fairly straightforward how to reach out to the city and participate.
Could we have a roll call vote, please, for resolution number 43, series 2022 moratorium policy resolution?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Absolutely.
Counselor Richards.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We'll be back to you again Monday night to talk public engagement and get into the weeds a little bit on demolition.
Gracias.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Ben. Have a great evening.
See, and feel better,
Ben.
Philip, wherever you are.
Say hi to Tracy.
That'll bring us down to our action item this evening, which is resolution number 41, series 2022, amending the COVID protocols at the Wheeler Opera House. I think this might be Sarah.
And Denise is online.
Hola, Denise.
Yes, Denise is our communications director. Our executive director of the Wheeler is out of the office this week, so I'm pinch-hitting on this one since I was at the board meeting. And counselors that were there, if you would be willing to chime in, that would be great. In summary, the recommendation from the staff and the Wheeler Advisory Board is to lift the mask requirement and make it mask optional and recommended inside the facility. There is a request to still maintain proof of vaccination in the facility or proof of a negative COVID test 24 hours before attending a performance or working at a performance. This is our only facility in the city's ownership that has any restrictions left. These are set to expire on April 15th, according to the original resolution passed by council. So at this point, we're looking for council's support to remove the mask requirement to a mask recommended status. Thank you.
There was a pretty active discussion about what they're doing in New York and theaters for masks, and I think it's time that we can do it as a recommended. I mean, it's recommended that people wear masks, but I agree that we can remove the mask. And
Well, and as the memo said, it's, people will put them on, but then they take them off halfway through performance, and at this point in time, it's really difficult to ask a person to put a mask on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the policy recommendation. I think we've moved to a point in COVID where people are choosing to protect themselves or exercise additional continuing caution for their own personal reasons or not. But I think we are definitely past the mandated time period. And, you know, like others, we're all hopeful that this new European variant isn't a big deal and it maybe passes over if enough people have gotten their vaccination. And so we still would like to emphasize vaccinations have really what have gotten us to this point of people not contracting and spreading as vigorously as just December. So let's try to keep up the good work and think about it. You know, the one thing I realized after COVID is that I used to go through an airport and I'd see a person wearing a mask and I thought, they must be sick. And now I realize they were protecting themselves from everyone else in the airport. And that's a different change of philosophies, I think, for all of us, and thinking about it as more of a personal self-protection measure from here on out. Thank you.
No, and then there's the manner in which you wear a mask too, is not just to protect yourself, but to protect us, because you've been exposed to more people in the general public than we have, and I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this as well. You know, it's time. You know, I was very supportive of all the restrictions when we put them in, when they were necessary. They were to protect our healthcare system and ourselves when we didn't know what was going on. I think I heard the governor on a podcast the other day say in Colorado, you know, 91% of residents now have protection either from vaccination or infection, and that number is going to climb. I was hanging out with a handful of surgeons the other day. Friends were talking about the new variant, and you know, the initial indications are much more transmissible than Omicron, but less virulent, and this is endemic now. You know, our initial flu shots came from the 1918 flu. Yeah. We didn't know that. I certainly didn't know that. I'm sure some people knew that, but I didn't, and that's how it's going to be. There are going to continue to be new variants, and we have to go about our lives because the negative impacts of our well-intentioned and effective policies are also real too, in the mental health and connection and that. So it's time to find our new equilibrium. This is a step in that direction.
Thanks, Skippy. Question for you, Sarah. The original resolution expires April 15th. So would this is this an amendment to that and it would expire on the 15th as well? Yes, it does. Okay. Okay. Any further comments? This is a resolution 41, amending the COVID protocols. I would accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt, which one is it?
41.
41.
41.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for Resolution 41, amending the COVID protocols at the Wheeler Opera House?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau.
Yes.
Counselor Richards, Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Yes.
And the last item on our agenda has been removed, so that brings us to adjournment this evening.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion tonight? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for adjourning the meeting?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Affirmative.
Counselor Richards.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Thank you all.
You've been great.
Thank you. Thank you, Grassroots.
Thank you. I worked really hard for that. Yeah.